Welcome to the Football Guys Dynasty Show. It's me, Jagger May. And then with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, our Dynasty Captain, Jeff Bell. And we had actual football guys, and we didn't just have preseason speculation where I'm being fooled by coach speak. And we'll just hop right into it with our Risers and Fallers episode. And we're going to talk about Mark Andrews. This is one a lot of people are panicking about because Isaiah likely had a big game. Jeff, where are you at with this situation?
I mean, I'm not particularly concerned because one, Mark Andrews is coming off an injury. He didn't play towards the end of last year. Two, he had a car accident shortly before training camp. And three, when you watch so the Kansas City Chiefs know the Baltimore Ravens very, very well. And when you watch the game, they were going to take out Mark Andrews. That's what they did. They dedicated themselves to taking out Mark Andrews. And what's going to happen now is offenses might have been able to do that in the past, but now Isaiah likely went off, and Zay Flowers had a good game. He was really a pass interference and a missed play in the end zone away from having a great game.
Big game, yep.
And so you're going to have defenses are going to adjust, and that's going to open things back up for Mark Andrews. I mean, maybe Mark Andrews doesn't pull a dominant target share like he was at some points a couple of years ago, but at the same time, when you look at the tight end landscape, I mean, it's a mess. Like I don't think it's not even. I don't think. Week 1 was horrible for tight ends, worse than any other position. And none of these top players had great games. So to really kind of fly off the handle on Mark Andrews relative to are you going to do the same thing on Travis Kelce and Dalton Kincaid and every other tight end who didn't have a fantastic game, which is all of them?
You cooked there. Like every time I was about to make a point, you hit it right there. Because it's like I said, if you think Mark Andrews sucks, you have to think that every top 5 dynasty asset at tight end sucks. And that's just objectively untrue. And this happens, and you nailed the point on the head. I looked at the all 22 tape. NFL Pro, guys, is amazing. I hope you can afford it. I am one of the lucky few that get things for free. We get paid mainly in perks now. And they legitimately just played a good defense. That's what happens. Coach Spags is a top 3 defensive coordinator in this league. To me, I talked to my brother-in-law who's he actually knows football and he's a Chiefs fan. And I told him that I think that Coach Spags is the new Belichick because he could take some of these day 3, day 2, day 3 guys and make Pro Bowlers out of them. And then he's going to take away your best piece every game plan. And that's exactly what happened. And you nailed it. The Ravens are lucky that they have a much more well-rounded offense that they didn't have, let's say 2 years ago when they're trying to get the most out of, I can't even name a good wide receiver for the Ravens since Steve Smith and Anquan Bolden, I think. And those were brief years to give you an example. So it was still a competitive game on top of that. When we look at Keep Trade Cut to see where exactly we're panicking on him, I don't have his ranking yet. Give me just a second.
He is actually I did have it up and then I wanted to look at something else because what I wanted to do is
he's already fallen.
Yeah, he's tight end 8. He's fallen. I wanted to look at Jahmyr Gibbs because I remember last year, week 1 against Kansas City, he was also that Thursday night game. And I don't think there's a bigger overreaction game than that Thursday night game because, well, everybody's watching it and we're waiting for something all year long. But if you remember last year, Jahmyr Gibbs was climbing. He was running back 2 at some points in Dynasty. And then that game happened and he dropped down to, running back 3, dropped down to running back 4. And then by October, he was down to running back 8 in Dynasty, and before he spiked back up once kind of that he got acclimated. And this is a long season. And if you're going to freak out over one game, why are you freaking out over week 1 relative to what would have happened in week 12? Because I'm sure if you looked at every elite Dynasty asset, there's one game worth freaking out, and sometimes it just happens to be week 1.
Exactly. And Marcus Grant said this on Twitter. A lot of these guys have only played one game. Basically, week 1 and 2 is just the extension of the preseason because we had a lot of sloppy football all around. Like, say, Mark Andrews aside, Jameson Williams aside. Like, you talk about some of these plays that were called back. You know how many whistles I've seen because we're at the points of emphasis part of the season, yes. And I guess they want more sacks and a slow down offense. I never understand the NFL because they're like, we need more offense, so they make a rule, and then they're like, that's too much offense. So they make another rule. And I don't really care. If I feel like this is really stupid, and I'd just rather have my QBs protected. But anyway, that's not the point. That's going on right now. There's just a lot of like bad tackling. Like a lot of these wide receivers and quarterbacks are out of sync because, you know, they're playing live reps, not even just like the preseason practice with other team reps where they're like, yeah, that's getting chippy. That's still not as real as where we're at now. So just chill out on Mark Andrews. Like I have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews stack in our home league, and I'm in our home league, in our listener league, and I've already got people like sending me trades for him. The answer is no, guys. Like, it's week 1, and Lamar Jackson is an objectively amazing quarterback, and the Ravens are a great offense. I'm not going to freak out about one game. On the flip side, Isaiah Likely's a real deal. Jeff Bell has been on this for a long time. Dave Kluge's been on this. I got on the bandwagon a little bit later on here. That, like, Rashad Bateman, dunzo, guys. It's Jover. I think he's going to have a couple of big plays a game, maybe. And by a couple, I mean like he had one long catch. You're looking at 2 catches for 53-yard games. He might have a touchdown, but Isaiah Likely is like the joker on this team, if you really think about it. So, before we get any further, we got to pay some bills, folks. If you like this content, if you like Jeff, like and subscribe. If you're over on our listener side, and like I said, if you guys don't make it for the YouTube show, we're on every streaming platform that you can listen to a podcast on. Give us a review there. We have our trade show every week. If you guys have any trades, if you want to flex, you pulling one over on your teammates like you guys like to do, put those in the comments. You guys can even put those over on Apple Plus. I'll only respond to 5 stars. No 4-star, like I'm being modest. Give me a 5-star and I'll give you a trade of 5 stars. It's transactional. And then with that, we're in full season mode. I know Jeff just dropped an article. I have my heck and chonker every week where I give you every matchup, every injury, and then I'll give you a little blurb on the fantasy analysis with that game looking over at Vegas. Of course, we've got our league dominator over there. So if you're looking to make trades or you're looking to panic trade, now's the time to use that to keep you in check. I think I'm done. I've said all the stuff that I get paid the medium bucks to do. So we're going to move over to our riser, and it is Jameson Williams. This is a guy that I could have had like 15 times, and I always said no to. And I still don't know how I feel about that, but he had a huge game, and he looked like the wide receiver 1 for this team. Amon-Ra was pretty much shut down. I do think that this could be another classic case of taking away a team's best weapon, or Jameson Williams has just put it together. I think that this is real at this point, and I missed the hype when he was cheap. What do you think, Jeff?
No, I think this is real as well, and I think that's one of the things that it took him a little bit of time to get up and running at Ohio State before he transferred to Alabama, because he was kind of overshadowed by players like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and then it took him a little bit of time to get acclimated to the NFL. He had the gambling suspension, he had an injury, and then coming off of that, then we're finally getting a full offseason where Jameson Williams has been able to plug in, where he's ready to go week 1. He's got his feet wet. He's acclimated. His speed, we've seen his speed be difference making on an NFL level. And there are things about his game physically that nobody else in the Lions, very few players in the league, can match. And so that's where it gets really interesting, because when you look at Amon-Ra's value, when you look at Sam Laporta's value, a lot of that was accrued last year when they were running Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, like kind of some of these players acclimating Jameson Williams in off a suspension. Well, now you've got a guy that is legitimate, that was a top 11, 12 pick in his draft class, that has elite world-class speed, that can be a difference maker, and that starts to play with the target distribution a little bit more, and that can make things a little bit difficult for the other elite assets to pay off consistently. You lose that consistency, you lose that high ceiling, you lose that elite asset quality.
And this is why, and I think this is like football guys culture through and through, where we, like, a lot of people get upset about narratives. There's narrative, and there's just a objective fact of of what happened to a player. And then when you're not with the team that is trying to move fast, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player. It just means that you need some time. And then as someone, and I haven't looked at that tape yet because I really would like to look at what happened to Amon Ra that game. I'm not like concerned or anything, but I just want to look at the defensive side of the ball with the Rams. But the things that I did see of Jameson, like you use the term like putting it together. I saw a complete wide receiver that game, like particularly in the long touchdown. You saw a fast release at the line of scrimmage, and then he's nuanced enough to where he can stutter step. And then when you're that fast, a stutter step is devastating. And this is what happens with a lot of these guys that are just fast, is they don't know how to torque down their speed and kind of use these things to manipulate defenders out of position. And that was really fun to see, and it made me a believer. And then something that I was wrong on, I wasn't telling anyone to trade him or drop him, but he was someone I had a hard time really drafting, because I didn't love him as much pre-draft, but like you definitely could tell that he's been with NFL coaches. And then another thing, man, these Lions, like his post-game interview, you just saw like a happy dude that's ready. Like you hear the term "run through a wall." This team is so bought into Dan Campbell. I haven't looked at the Vegas lines, Jeff. I know you watch those a little harder than me. I wonder what if the Lions Super Bowl odds went up after that game, because they looked in control, even though the Rams kind of got theirs. They looked for real, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, going to overtime, obviously, but yeah, they looked. When the game started, we have a little bit of a group chat with some of our friends, and I said, the Lions look like they're about to win by 100, because it looked like they had turned up so high with the energy, with that crowd, and the way that defense came out. And obviously, the Rams are a very good football team as well. They're a team to keep an eye on, and losing that game in overtime. But I mean, the Lions, yeah, they things have broken very well for them already.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, guys. You're catching me in season now. You've mainly only had me in the off season. I turned into a full blown film junkie scout head, because it was really fun to look at the game plan they executed in that offense. Because Bobby Slowick and that smash and grab offense, they came in and they said, "We're going to wear you out after the first quarter." And then after they did that, that's when the big Jameson Williams plays happen. And then they moved in Jahmyr Gibbs. It's the perfect use of change of pace. Once they're wore out and tired, then you're going to outspeed them. And I think going forward, when you kind of look at the Lions offense, I would consider what that game script is going to look like, and that'll tell you of what running back is going to have a game at that point there. And I think for the wide receivers, it's going to be like the 49ers, man. This is what happens when teams have lots of targets. One day it's going to be a JMO day. Amon-Ra's going to have his day, and then Sam Laporta is going to have a game, and we just got to be okay with that. It's fantasy. You just want pieces of good offenses, and you got to accept the variance. That's enough of us gushing over the Lions. I hate that I'm using that word. That is Dave Kluge's fault, and I make fun of him enough for using it. And now I'm using it like ironically. Our next faller is DeAndre Hopkins. It's Jover, guys. He's done. He's fighting an MCL injury. By fighting, I mean he has an MCL tear and he's not getting surgery, and he's going to play anyway. When you're 32 years old, that doesn't sound very good, and he hasn't been very good in a while. And this is, like I said, guys, it's done. And when I say it's Jover, I mean he's objectively too old to do the job that he's done now, regardless of what you believe in. And Jeff, do you think the Titans, are you worried about them in general now?
Certainly, I think that things that we saw, and I mean, when you have the coach come out and he's not wrong, and he says if he would have punted on first down, they would have won the game. They're probably right. And the way that Will Levis really kind of fell apart at the end of that game, I mean, you start to ask questions about not only is Will Levis the quarterback here, but is Will Levis the quarterback in a month or 2 months? Because how much are they going to put up with? I mean, Mason Rudolph isn't really the type that's going to be banging on the door there to get him pulled out of the game. And a new coaching staff should have some level of patience with that. But to me, Hopkins feels like a situation where he knows if he's off the field, if he has surgery, he doesn't know if he's ever going to be back on the field, is where I feel like he's in his career, because we see it all the time with these older players that as soon as the injury happens, then the recovery becomes a problem. And yeah, Hopkins, he was never a great separator. He was always a, physical winning type receiver, but at the same time, if he doesn't have the late separation, if he doesn't have the explosion, the burst, he's just a covered wide receiver. And if he's falling out of a rotation with the Titans where you've got Treylon Burks and Tyler Boyd out playing him, I mean, that's not exactly one of the strongest wide receiver rooms across the league, and raises questions. And I really can't believe some of the players that he's still ranked ahead of in Dynasty. Like Andre Yoshivas, like, didn't have a great game, but I mean, he's trending upwards. Quentin Johnston had a better game than DeAndre Hopkins and first round draft capital. I know people are out on him, but at the same time, I mean, he's ranked above Tyler Lockett, who really did have a good game. Well, Wan'Dale Robinson had a ton of volume, very young, still 23. I mean, are you really taking DeAndre Hopkins over any of these guys at this point? Because I would not be.
I've got my dynasty blinders on. I've had my dynasty blinders on Hopkins. Like I took him in best ball because it's best ball, and you know you're gonna take some shots. But in dynasty, I've been offered him in trades on contenders that I need depth on. It's the devil's fruit there. You know that's for everyone that hits that you can use like survivor's bias on, you're going to have probably like a dozen misses on at this point, especially when you consider his age and he's trying to play through a situation like this. It's pretty, to me, it's nuts. And I guess he's just trying to stay relevant, I guess, by trying to play through. I can't put my psyche, I can't get in the mind of an NFL wide receiver half the time. So I'm not even going to try to do it there. So guys, if someone's still a believer, if you have that dude in your league who's just like, who says stuff like, well, it's DeAndre, it's D-Hop, he'll figure it out. You know, D-Hop down there somewhere. Go. If you can get a fourth rounder at this point, I would probably go and do that. Like, do you think D-Hop's like fourth rounder at this point? Like the fourth rounder's worth more than him?
I mean, for me, yes, because
Yeah.
it's not only that you're getting a fourth rounder, it's that, and I think it was Adam Harstad in his last article made a really good point about this, where he was talking about a trade that he did during a rookie draft because he would have had to take Bigsby from his roster. So he traded pieces for Jake Ferguson, and in like on Dan Hendry's trade value chart and other trade value charts, he lost the trade when it was just the two pieces for Jake Ferguson. But when he added Tank Bigsby to that side, it was a big win for him. And so what you're doing, you're moving DeAndre Hopkins for a fourth, but also you're moving DeAndre Hopkins off your roster for the player that you're going to pick up for that. And in some, I mean, this summer, Jordan Mason was one of those types of players.
Whittington.
Whittington sitting right there. There's players that pop up like that throughout the season that have value, that or the ability to add a running back that could be a starter, an Emmanuel Wilson type or something like that, I think gives you a lot more than Hopkins. Plus you have a draft pick on top of it.
Yep. And just some smaller ones like that we made that we just brought up. Jordan Whittington, if go get him right now. Like I know it might be weird because he got a touchdown and people think about the Puka injury, but like I said, guys, there are people that still believe in DeAndre Hopkins and they think that they're going to get a deal. So it's a numbers game. Go try to get these pieces. I wouldn't mind. I know that me and Jeff got cooked over on the other lesser apps about Pacheco. I would still go and get one of those two running backs because it's week 1 and I still think that they may use them. So I would go get something like that. I think that we're looking at DeAndre Hopkins as droppable because of retirement or anything anytime soon. And I would rather be wrong early than have those bags at this point. So we go to our next riser, and he had a huge game. And I've been telling you guys to sell, and I don't want to. Me and Jeff are going to break down a lot of that snap share in like a later episode, but essentially, Jayden Reed is he the wide receiver 1 now at this point? Jeff, he's a big riser. He had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he is, and I think it's kind of a lesson. Like I kind of talked about it in my article today, but it is kind of a lesson on we get so stressed out about who's going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, and I think looking at it as I don't really give a shit if the guy's not going to be asked to run block, if he's going to be dynamic and creative with the ball in his hands, if he's still going to play 80% of the snaps and be heavily involved when he's on the field. I mean, why do I care if he's not playing that other 20%? I think that that's one of those things that there's noise there's noise in their signal. And I think that the wide receivers that are going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets anymore is more noise than signal, because what's the guy going to do when he's on the field and given the opportunities? And Jayden Reed especially showed himself week 1, 2 touchdowns, a third one that was called back because of a penalty, that he is a dynamic, creative playmaker with the ball in his hands. And the Packers offense needs him, especially if Jordan Love is going to be out of the lineup for a little while.
Yeah, and the rate that the Packers use 11 personnel is fairly high. I mean, if you look at
Yes.
these Sean McVay
It's
coaching
even higher
trees,
than it did,
yeah.
in the past. They use it even more now, yeah.
Now, just spoilers, guys. I still think Romeo Dubs is valuable, and I honestly Christian Watson's valuable as well. If you think about how they used him, because it really was Jayden Reed is like the big play guy. Romeo Dubs is going to be the possession guy, and they will look for him down at the red zone. He runs a lot of fades down there in the red zone. Jayden Reed gets the rub routes. Same thing with Christian Watson. Christian Watson might just be like, I think he might be like kind of the new Anquan Boldin, if you really think about it, except really fast. I know that's weird, but they're just kind of using him like a power forward down there because he's athletic enough to get up in the back of the end zone. So Jayden Reed's for real. I think, to be honest, if anything, I think that we were still right that Jayden Reed, he's still going to have his up and downs and a high variance player, but it was never like get him off your roster type thing. You're just trying to encapsulate on value. And that's what I want you guys to understand, that we're playing Dynasty. We're trying to acquire Dynasty value. We're not saying that this guy sucks. Sometimes we are, like DeAndre Hopkins. He's like, that's a dead asset. So we'll be clear there. But this is a case where it's like, yeah, like the value's good. Now, we know what he is. You probably should just keep him. And I do think that he could consistently live in like the wide receiver 24 value. So like right now in football, guys, he's wide receiver 34. Keep trade cut, he's wide receiver 26. And like I said, guys, keep trade cut moves much faster than we do. We mainly update these once a week. So like mine, I'm going to move them closer to where KTC is. I think they have the right of it. And like I said, guys, like and subscribe. Because we're really going to dive deep into the Packers in our third episode this week. Our next faller, man, Jeff. It's Bryce Young. Is he a bust, man? He's going QB 23 on keep trade cut. That's too high. I feel like at this point. I'll see where he's at on football, guys. Do you think he's a bust, or are we still waiting around?
Yeah. I mean, the way that he went out and threw an interception on his very first throw of the game, and I watched in the game, like I just thought it was interesting that it's not that when somebody's covering a game, they're looking for something to talk about. It's that he forces the color analyst, to talk about his size because it's an issue. Because it's not the type of thing of like, well, this is just an interesting tidbit. You watch him on the field and he's just getting ragdolled. And I know Stephen Ruiz is a pretty smart analyst when it comes to quarterbacks. And I heard him on Bill Simmons' show, and he's a Panthers fan. And he really kind of solidified it for me, where he said, what does he do well? Like, what is his one trait that will allow you to think he's going to succeed? And I asked Dave Kluge about that, and Dave said, well, he's very cerebral. And I said, well, Dave, the league is filled with 32 cerebral quarterbacks. Like, if you're going to tell me that this dude's a smart dude, well, I mean, I got to have a little bit of something that, he's great arm strength or great escapability or great mobility, whatever it might be. For Young, I mean, what is it? Like, I just don't know. Like, what's the trump card that will allow him to succeed relative to, best case, is he a version of Tua Tagovailoa? Is best case, is he a version of Brock Purdy? Is even that when it comes to physical tools?
Brock Purdy, I can't see it right now because like Brock Purdy can, and I mean literally see the field. I'm not saying
Right.
like being able to anticipate. I mean, he can literally see the field. The arm strength is there. Like, and when I say it's there, I would say that it's average. And to give you guys a little look ahead, when we put the rookie guide together. Like I try to make my process incredibly formulaic so I can have as much as objective data as possible with film. And I've kind of shifted to more to these physical tools because it's easier to teach someone how to see the field than make them just a bigger person. Like I know that's crazy, man, but like that's legitimately how it is. And then if you know the fundamentals of playing the quarterback position, size does go into that mechanically. Like a lot of these guys that are 6'5", you look at Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is long, 6'6". Trevor Lawrence doesn't look as tall as he is because he's so long, and they just have more leverage on the football. And that's more tape that I need to look through. Like I said, I'm in college till about Wednesday, and then I kind of shift to NFL and watch some of that. So it's concerning, and I think you should cut your losses. I have a couple of shares, and I used to think that like I would trade Bryce Young if I got another quarterback. Now I just want to trade Bryce Young and get something. Like I don't care at this point. And the rosters I do have them on, they're not very competitive anyway. And I would rather just, catch value. And then what's crazy about Superflex, guys, if you're in a Superflex league, is that it's Superflex. It's not 2 QB start. You don't have to put a QB there. And I've had a league where I put a tight end there and I was competitive. Shout out to Sam Laporte and Trey McBride last season. It's fine. All right. That's enough on the Bryce Young hate. Football Guys is QB19. That'll definitely go down after this week. Me personally is going to help bring that down. We'll move on to one of our risers, and it's Rashee Rice. I know, Jeff, you and Dave have been lockstep and been pretty high on Rashee Rice. I've been with you. Like I bought a share, and I traded that share, unfortunately, for Deontay Johnson. And this is I really got to eat it. I would lose that trade if I didn't get Ramondre Stevenson back. Like, hands down, I would have lost that trade. Like,
I hate to break it to you, bud, but you still lost it.
Oh, come on. Ramondre's got RB1 value, and that was a contender. And if you hear the rest of my roster, Rashee Rice was like my flex. Like, I'm fine. I'm just putting like Jerome Ford there now. Like that's a whole context thing. If you put it in like Dan Hendry's trade calculator, I biffed it, guys, sometimes, but I really needed a running back because let's put it this way, guys. I was waiting on Jonathan Brooks to come back from IR. Doesn't seem so bad now that I have Ramondre Stevenson. So that's a whole other thing that I'm going to think about that when he comes back. But Rashee Rice right now is he the wide receiver 1, not counting Kelsey, but like, what do you think the pecking order is between Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy right now?
Well, he's the wide receiver 1 counting Kelsey. I mean, I think that the transition has happened. I mean, if you watch what transpired over the second half of last year, rolling into week 1, I mean, yeah, maybe some of it is wanting to preserve Kelsey for the postseason. Some of it's recognizing the age of Travis Kelsey and recognizing that you have a physical receiver in his prime that is able to operate and do a lot of the similar things that Kelsey did, and it was much more dynamic with the ball in his hands. And he's essentially, you talk about the Jerick McKinnon role in the Chiefs offense. It's kind of Rashee Rice is a little bit of a blend of the Jerick McKinnon role and of, kind of Travis Kelsey's future role or past role. And yeah, I mean, he's going to eat volume. He's going to eat slant volume all day long off of Patrick Mahomes, and it's just going to be continued to be opened up by the addition of Xavier Worthy. When Hollywood Brown hits the lineup, the speed threat of those guys is going to open up this opportunity for Rashee Rice to eat in the middle of the field. I mean, Travis Kelsey, you talk about being concerned about Mark Andrews. Travis Kelsey, to me, is a guy that I would be pretty concerned about because, I don't know that he's got elite tight end 1 finishes when he's flirting with 20 points per game type seasons anymore in his range of outcomes. And you're kind of mailing it in as, tight end 5-ish with Rashee Rice in the lineup. Obviously with Rashee Rice, you have to talk about there is a likely looming suspension at some point. We don't expect it to be this year. And Drew Davenport has been all over that for us at Football Guys. And the legal proceedings are kind of slated to run at the end of the season. So you're probably going to bail it out this year, and then you'll see the dip. And it's very similar to the Alvin Kamara situation where he had a dip because there was a pending suspension, except for he wasn't actually ever suspended. Then he was suspended the next year. And so it's like almost you got the double dip. But yeah, right now, I mean, you're looking at him at wide receiver 18 and keep trade cut. Why is he not a wide receiver top 12? If he's going to have that kind of volume, if he's going to be 100 yards per game type player for the Chiefs offense, a guy that can accrue 7, 6, 8, 9 catches every week with multiple touchdowns thrown in there. I mean, that is a top 12 wide receiver if I've ever seen one.
I have a hard time being that bullish right now. And this is
what do you want to see still, I guess would be my question.
that's what I was going to get into. I don't think he's going to continue to have consistent games like that because on the other side of the ball, I'm concerned about the Ravens defense now that they have a new defensive coordinator and they're thin in the secondary. Because here's the pros. He looked much better. And this is I did watch all 22 in. He is much better at getting leverage at the line of scrimmage. So like he had a particular whip route that looked good. I think he is an elite in and out slot man, meaning that like if you want him on dig routes, you want him on slants, he's fine. Where I'm concerned is almost all that production happened because there's a linebacker on him. This is me being persnickety. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying I'm not ready to say that he's top 12 or the wide receiver 1 over Xavier Worthy. I do agree 100% about Kelsey. And I don't think this is a bad thing. I think that Kelsey might be in his Jake Ferguson era where like he's going to have these games where he puts up like 8 points and then he'll have a game where he'll have like 2 touchdowns or a touchdown or something like that. Like that's fine, guys. This happened to Jason Witten. It's happened to every tight end ever where they just kind of become touchdown dependent. He's done really well for us. So that's my thing with Rashee Rice is that like I do think that he's good. I think he's going to be productive and to me, I think wide receiver 22 is appropriate for me where he's at football, guys. I can't put him inside the top 15 if he does that against a team that actually has like a quality secondary and scheming. I think the Ravens might be in a lot of shootouts this year if they don't figure that out. Like it was shocking to see that they continued to put a linebacker on Rashee Rice. So that's not me being poo-poo on Rashee, guys. He is a better player than he was last year. I'm slow on some of these things.
I mean, you know that Chiefs fans are just out there hunting for anything negative. The 2-time defending Super Bowl champs, and they're just out there hunting for any negativity online to just smash.
I will never clip a Chiefs take that is less than saying that someone is the greatest of all time again, Jeff. Let's put it that way. I'll never do it again. That was a mistake. Because we had context to that, and like you can only put so much in one. So like Chiefs fans, don't come after me. I think you have a very good player, but and here's what I want to explain to you guys: Chiefs, you have a great team. You have a great team. You have lots of good players. So like when it comes to fantasy, that means that I don't think that this guy is going to be as good as other players because there's just not as many good receivers and he's just going to eat a lot more. That's where I'm at with Rice here. Like I think he's a great player. It's just hard for me to put him into wide receiver 15. And I'm not like I need to see it guy, but in this case I need to see it and here's the reason why. And it's very football related. Next one, we'll keep it brief, guys. Get rid of Deshaun Watson. Just get rid of him. It's like I joked about this in our work group chat. I don't know how you rank. I know I talked about this. Yeah, it was in the work group chat. I don't know how you rank essentially emotional turmoil because another report came out on Deshaun Watson and there's real talk that they might be able to just void his contract at this point because of conduct. He's football guys QB 20. That's going to go down. I know that for sure. Keep trade cut QB 27. That's going to go down because like, I think, would you take Sam Darnold? Let's say if we did a startup right now, would you take Sam Darnold over Deshaun Watson?
Oh, wow.
Now, you're thinking
Maybe.
About it. You're thinking about it. Yeah.
And especially with that report coming out today and the way that he played so bad in week 1, there was not positive reports coming out of the preseason. And you're in a situation where you probably in most leagues, half the league or so is just not going to have this guy on their roster because they just don't want any part of it. And the other half, you're dealing with what, it's like trying to get value out of him. I think it's very difficult. And I've had people come to me with trades for about him this summer, and like somebody came to me, it was Deshaun Watson and another piece to get Kyler Murray, and I was like what do you, yeah, like what like what's your hesitation? He's like, well, I think I might, Watson had some top 12 quarterback weeks last year, I might be selling. And I was like, no, you're capitalizing on Watson and turning it into Kyler Murray, and you're getting out of a scary situation.
Yeah, and like Kyler Murray's flaws aside, I know that Waldman's not a huge fan, and Kyler Murray sometimes does a little bit too much pitter patter back there and has a problem getting the ball open. If you saw Marvin Harrison Jr., he's still going to be a starter, guys, probably for a while. Um, the QB play, after all we said, and I I've been on this team because I'm like Justin Fields, even if he's in a good quarterback, he might be a starter for a while. Same thing with Gardner Minshew, because the QB play, the bottom is still there, guys. JJ McCarthy hasn't played a real snap yet. Drake May hasn't played a real snap yet. Then I don't the Patriots might have a weird decision to make where I think we've seen this before where like they need to be either so bad they need to start Drake May, or they might be a lot better where they can start Drake May because that defense is so good. But regardless, Brissett is good enough to at least put out a competent offense, and I don't think we're going to be playing for the first overall pick this year. We looked like much better than we were last year. Pat's fandom aside, but like this is my whole point is like Watson isn't going to be in this league. There is going to be other quarterbacks. So go and get some of these guys you may not like because they probably are going to have jobs like Brissett, Gardner Minshew. The league likes these guys because they're smart. Like Jeff, you said, cerebral quarterback. Jacoby Brissett has played in like 8 different systems. Like I think he's cerebral as you could get. Like he's probably going to be a coach someday type guy. He's probably just fine. But keeping someone like Watson where he's going to have, a retired designation, or he's going to be the new Colin Kaepernick, except more deservedly so, is just something you don't want to be in. I'm about to write droppable assets, like another one, Trey Lance, I think is droppable in Dynasty, to kind of like pivot on there. Some of these guys you just kind of got to give up on, All right, now for our last riser. And this is kind of talking the other side of the coin is Xavier Worthy. Keep trade cut. He's already the wide receiver 19. Football guys, he's the wide receiver 27. I think football guys, he definitely comes up a bit. Where are you at on Xavier Worthy?
I mean, I want pieces of him for sure. And obviously we saw the explosion. That speed definitely translates, that plays at this level. And so you're attached to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the sky's the limit. He definitely could be a top 12 option, but I do wonder if it's going to be, and it's like kind of, it's almost, and I think that he even called him like the Devin A. Chan of wide receivers at some point this summer, where it's the argument on, efficiency, boom bust production relative to hunting out some volume. And if he does get volume, then yeah, I mean, he can be a top 5 type wide receiver given his physical abilities. And we saw that at Texas. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we saw at Texas was his ability to work underneath, his ability to work intermediate relative to just kind of being a deep guy. And I think that with Hollywood Brown out of the lineup, that was one of the biggest things that benefited him in the summer, because it kind of forced them to use him at different levels instead of allowing them to just kind of ease him in as a deep threat only. And so I think it's interesting to see that development and to see an offense that can and will use him in ways that can accrue a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah. And a cool thing about the NFL guys is that they have the best nutritionists and trainers out there. So Xavier Worthy could do this cool thing called gain weight, and like still be athletic. So like I'm not too worried. Like I picked up my shares of Worthy. I was a bit higher in Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't regret that. I don't think now. That's again, both of these guys are good. Yeah, like I'm not when like Brian Thomas Jr. went, I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just get Patrick Mahomes wide receiver, like you're fine. So like, would you trade Worthy for Garrett Wilson? Let's say right now we're recording during Monday Night Football. He has 6 targets for 4 catches and 48 yards with Rodgers. So he looks sharp. He looks like a wide receiver one in the player that we thought he would so far. Would you trade Worthy in like a second or first to go get Wilson, or would you just keep Worthy at that point?
I mean, I would upgrade to Wilson. I mean, what talk about
Consistent.
first? I'm like maybe I don't know. I'm so stingy with first that it's kind of I still probably would do that. But I mean, if I could do a second and capitalize on Worthy's hype and go get Garrett Wilson, I mean, I'm definitely doing that.
See, that tells me a first is still like close. Like, cause like
Oh
you have to
yeah,
think about it. Cause like to be that should get deals done, and that depends on preferences. Like, I think Garrett Wilson has an elite floor, and what I meant that like he's a guy who can average 16 points per game, if not more, every week, and Worthy could do that as well. We just need to see more of it. And again, there's just a lot of dudes in Kansas City, guys. A lot of dudes. So, um, I'm I'm a believer. I'm not as bullish to move him now, and he's attached to a good team. But that wraps things up, folks. As always, I'm Jagger, and that's Jeff. We'll have 2 more shows coming up for you. We'll have our trade show coming up next. And then after that, we're going to break down week 1 even further, talk about the things that we've learned since real football's happened. Make sure to go to footballguys.com/plans. We have even more actionable items over there for you. Jeff writes a bunch. I write a bunch now. I'm doing redraft and dynasty. And me and Jeff have the Sunday morning live with Joey Wright every Sunday, like it says in the name. So I will see you guys on the next one.